Hi, I'm Connie Wray, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Talk It Out Tuesday. I'm excited to moderate the third episode of Talk It Out Tuesday. This is a weekly interview series where Crisis Support Services of Nevada, they partner with experts to dive into some of the most current issues concerning many families in crisis during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we thought we would talk about domestic and family violence through COVID-19. It's a difficult topic, but it's definitely something we need to be discussing. And experts are warning right now that the movement restrictions, that can really mean more frequent and severe incidences of domestic violence and child abuse. The isolation, disruption of schedules, economic struggles that many families are facing right now, these conditions are what advocates say can really lead to more violence in the home. And we're very excited to have Sheriff Darin Balaam on the show with us today to talk about this. Not only is he the sheriff here for Washoe County, but he also serves on the board of trustees for the Children's Cabinet. So thank you so much for being with us again today, Sheriff Balaam. Crisis Support Services, also, this is their baby, this is their project, and we want to say a very special thank you and welcome to the program, Rachelle Pellissier. She is the Executive Director for Crisis Support Services of Nevada. Thank you both for being with us today. Sheriff Balaam, I'm going to start with you. We really felt that this was a timely topic since we know now, as of yesterday, the governor is asking us to do a stay-at-home now through the 15th. We are starting to slowly see things open, but we also know that with the stay-at-home order, it really does put a lot of pressure and stress on many families. And right now in the region, we are really starting to see an uptake in certain crimes, and especially when it comes to calls regarding family disturbances and violence. What are you seeing right now out there, Sheriff Balaam?
What we're seeing right now, just as crimes in general, is an uptick in vehicle burglaries, commercial burglaries. But when we talk about domestic violence, we've been monitoring this since the beginning of our quarantine period. So since about March 16th, knowing exactly what you highlighted earlier, as people had to stay at home and jobs were lost or people were furloughed, those stresses were going to be compounded. When we weren't in a quarantine period where maybe the perpetrator would leave, now they're all in the same residence in a confined space for much longer periods of time. So what we've seen is increase in disturbance calls and family disturbance calls for service. And then on the other side, what I know, and Rachelle will probably concur on the service providers sitting on the Children's Cabinet, we've seen a tremendous increase in calls for people reaching out for rent, for other services that are related to domestic violence, of how to get out. So we've seen huge increases in those around the region. In law enforcement, we've been working with all of our providers of how do we get to those victims? How do we let them know we're here to help, and we can get you out of those situations.
I saw a stat recently that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 7 men suffer from domestic violence. So we absolutely see that with being isolated with the perpetrator and with the entire family really is making that number skyrocket, especially with people who may not have suffered from a domestic violence situation before. It's more important now than ever before to let people know that we have services out there, no matter where you are, that we can get you help during this period. And just because you're home, again, does not mean you're alone. We want to help you through these types of experiences.
Sheriff Balaam, if there was a proper verbiage, if I wanted to talk to a friend who was in this situation, is there verbiage or something that you can guide us with in regards to opening up that conversation, how we can approach the victim so that we can let them know that they can get out of this situation?
I think the first thing we always need to remind them is, that they are important, that they are worth something, that you are here as a friend and you are going to be by them through this whole process, and they can get out. What we've seen from most victims is they've been worn down, whether that's emotionally, physically, both. And so just reminding that they are worth something. They absolutely are a vital part of our entire life, our culture, our society, that you're not going to judge them, and you're here, and there is hope and light at the end of that tunnel.
Most of the time when people are in this kind of situation or any kind of crisis, they feel like they're alone and they can't get out. And it is very important for a friend to help, or any loved one to help the person to know that they're not alone, and there are services and there are people who want to help them through this crisis.
I've seen a lot of conversations about this on social media. For example, I saw one just last night. It was a post and it said, if you're in trouble, send me a text asking for a bread recipe. Does this really hurt or help a victim that might be in need?
Having those code words absolutely helps. If you don't have those code words and you just automatically call law enforcement when we show up, it could compound it. So I would tell you, we want to make sure that the number one priority is the safety of the victim and those that live in the house. It may not just be that person. In residence where kids or other people live, they're going to be exposed to either the verbal, emotional, mental abuse as well by just witnessing it. If you feel your friends in need and in danger, or they're in a volatile situation, call a service provider or reach out to law enforcement, and we will absolutely go there. We're here to help, and we want to make sure we can get them out of that situation. But those code words are extremely helpful when, again, we're now in a confined space. That perpetrator may not leave now because they're stay at home, so they're sitting right next to you. So if they look at the text, it looks like a simple, I'm just baking a recipe. And if they have those key code words of, yes, this is the time to call the police, or no, but please call some services, or however they need to do to get out of that situation, the key is to get them out of it.
The most important things when we do get calls for help is to not make the situation worse for the person that is in an abusive environment. So you have to be really careful with that. Like the sheriff talked about, sometimes just sending, police or law enforcement out isn't the best option in that moment, because it absolutely can make it worse. Obviously, if it's a high risk life and death situation, you don't want to call Crisis Support Services of Nevada. You want to call law enforcement. But neighbors, although I know they want to help, it's very important to be careful and not make the situation worse.
This again is for you, Sheriff Balaam. Explain to us why these service providers are so vitally important.
They have the resources and the accesses to get people out of that situation. So they know who to call, they know where the shelters are, and they have the means financially, transportation-wise. So collaborating with them, with the victims, whether it's law enforcement or just the victims and those service providers, is critical because they do this day in and day out. They have the experiences. They know when to insert themselves in a manner which is not going to agitate the situation, and they can get them out in a rapid fashion if need be, and keep them out of there and provide those services on an ongoing process, and not just for that one time in point in time. So, just getting them out is one thing, but then you have to look at the long term, and that's where these service providers are critical of, if they don't have a job, how do we get them a job? How do we get them housing? How do we get them food? And the necessities, and those service providers, that is exactly what they do.
We're very good at listening, scoping out and assessing the situation, seeing if we need to bring law enforcement in for any given situation, or if we can help that person get a place to stay for the night for the whole family. If they have pets, whatever is going on, we want to get them into a safe situation in a way that helps in the long term. So Sheriff Balaam is exactly right. I mean, we have different organizations that do a lot of different things that we can give resources to that survivor to get out and get themselves and their families safe.
You are answering that 1-800 number 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. And what I really want people to understand is exactly what you were saying is, you may not have the exact answer, but you can also get those individuals in touch with who they need, the resources that they need. So if you are a victim that is in crisis and you call Crisis Support Services of Nevada, they can really assess what it is that you need so that then you can evaluate where to send them to. Is that correct?
You're absolutely right. We're there 24/7 just for that reason, because you never know when someone is going to need our services. And when we get someone on the phone or on text message, we'll talk about that too. We do crisis intervention by text message. we help them in the moment, but then we refer them out to places in their service area that can help them for the long term. So it's vitally important for someone who's in an abusive situation to know that they can reach out to us, and we're going to do everything we can to keep them safe in the moment and get them the services that they need, whether that's law enforcement or that's shelter, transportation, as Sheriff Balaam talked about. Any of those things they're going to need to get out of that abusive situation.
And Sheriff Balaam, do you have any words that you would recommend if you were to speak directly to a victim today, some insight into how they can get out of that situation safely?
They just need to reach out one way or another, text message, through a friend, and we will come and help them get out of that situation. No matter what situation you find yourself in that you think, I can't get out, I'm dependent upon this person for my survival. You are not. You can survive by yourself, and there are services out there and law enforcement's out there. Our victim advocates are out here. We are waiting to help you get out of that situation so that you can get on the right road in life for yourself where you can survive and you can do it, and we're here to help.
Sheriff, do you see any positives that are coming out of this pandemic? I know that we're talking about a very difficult subject, and we're hoping that we can reach out to those individuals that might be living in an unsafe situation. But I know just talking with Rachelle each day and seeing what Crisis Support Services is doing and the engagement that they have in the community, it does appear that there is still some good that is happening in our community during all of this.
I think we can take a couple positives away. The one is people are now home and they're paying attention to their neighborhoods. More importantly, they're getting to know their neighbors. We know over the last couple generations, as we've evolved in our culture and society, that our grandparents grew up in the front yards and they knew every kid on the block, and we've slowly gone away from that. But I think this pandemic has now forced us back almost to that where we can only go in our front yard. So if you didn't know your neighbors, hopefully you've known them. You know who they are, you know their names, you know their kids. You've gotten to form a little bit of relationship with social distancing. But more importantly, also, it's heightened our sense of awareness. Hopefully, as we move away and come out of this pandemic, we're aware and watching for those signs and symptoms. So our hypersensitivity to COVID now will just transform to other things like domestic violence and those cues, so that if you know your neighbors now, you know their names, and all of a sudden you see that black eye or that darkening of the skin or a scratch or a mood change, you're going to ask what's wrong and reach out, where before you may have never known because you didn't know them. The other thing is it's heightened our awareness of domestic violence. This has been a national topic over the last 7 weeks. The positives are, if people were in this situation before and didn't know where to go, everybody, the community, city governments have put out, here's how you can help, here's who you call. So I look at those as some of the positives coming out of this.
I'm always very concerned, Sheriff Balaam. I know that domestic violence calls are one of the toughest calls for law enforcement to go on. We're actually going to do an episode about this, making sure that we're still taking care of the mental health for those first responders, the medical professionals, the first responders, the pre-responders. We know that this is a very challenging time for them, and we want to make sure that they too are getting the support that they need to get through this, as we're seeing so much post-traumatic stress disorder, a lot of people feeling anxiety and depression because of what they're witnessing. So very much looking forward to talking about this further in one of our next episodes. Well, I appreciate you both taking the time to talk with us today for Talk It Out Tuesday. And again, I just want to stress to anyone that is in crisis right now, Crisis Support Services of Nevada is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can call them at 1-800-273-8255. Like Rachelle said, there's also a text number. You can text SASS to 839863. You can also visit them online. You can go to their website at cssnv.org/domestic violence. And of course, if you are in immediate danger, please call 911. And again, I thank you both for taking the time to talk with us today, and really appreciate both of you, your staff, what you're doing for the community. This is a challenging time for all of us. whether you're working or not working or dealing with the community and trying to do the best job that we can. We just appreciate both of you and the services that you provide, and your staff as well, the men and women that are there to make our community a safe place. We cannot thank them enough from the bottom of our hearts. And we know this is a difficult and challenging time, but truly, I thank you both and your staff for all that you're doing for our community.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on, and thank you for helping us spread the word.
Yes, thanks, Connie. Thanks, Sheriff, very much.
Crisis Support Services of Nevada is a nonprofit organization. They are helping all of Nevadans as well as people across the nation. And we could not be doing this without your support. So if you have the means, we would love for you to make a donation. It's very simple to do. You can go to the website. Again, it's CSSNV.org. Again, CSSNV.org to make a donation. And we appreciate, again, your support as we continue to be there for one another.